Tree inequity is the uneven distribution of trees across our community. So it's the difference in people's access to trees and all of the benefits they provide. We see in some neighborhoods in Denver, there's lots of canopy cover, lots of tree canopy cover, and in other parts of Denver, there's very little forest cover.
The neighborhoods that tend to be whiter and tend to be wealthier also tend to have more tree canopy. They have bigger trees, more healthy trees, more trees, and they have more what's called tree canopy, which is the amount of canopy or coverage that you have in a particular place. And why that's important and why that's an equity issue is that if certain communities have more of this resource, they also have more of the benefits that it provides.
Well, one of the things that you will notice, I think, in these neighborhoods is a lack of a tree canopy, which is something that many neighborhoods in Denver enjoy. There are many old neighborhoods in Denver like Congress Park, Capitol Hill, Park Hill, that have, I think if you walk through those neighborhoods, one of the things you notice is the beautiful, giant old trees. And it's something that really, I think, contributes to the quality of life.
We should care about tree inequity because trees provide so many different benefits to our communities, so many different social, environmental, and economic benefits. They do so much to cool our communities with their shade and just in other ways reduce our urban heat island effect. They filter pollution out of the air, making it cleaner for us to breathe. They reduce flooding in our communities. They enhance our health, our physical and our mental health. People want to spend more time and money in places that have nicely tree-lined streets. So they provide so many benefits.
There's a tremendous amount of literature out there on the benefits of trees. And that's why it's important that we think about equity and inequity and how those trees and their benefits are distributed across our communities. Because if those benefits are only accruing to whiter and or wealthier individuals, families, and communities, not okay.
The value that trees provide when it comes to the benefit of shade is disproportionately higher and better here in this region. And so as our state warms, it's going to be more and more important that all communities have the shade that they need and deserve to be resilient. You can, in some ways, think about trees as giant umbrellas that help cool communities. If you're just walking around any neighborhood that has significant tree canopy, you're going to feel about a 15-degree difference between a shaded area and a non-shaded area. If you think about that citywide, ultimately we're talking about maybe 5-degree difference Fahrenheit across a city. But for a person, as they're existing in their community, it can be incredibly important to have that shade.
It's really important for us as a community organization to be good listeners and to be receptive to the other needs and desires and that residents on the ground have, and also to recognize that they are experts in their own lives and in their own neighborhoods, and also have knowledge that we wouldn't otherwise have. So we as an organization want to act as a listener and a partner and engage in a meaningful way with the communities that we serve.
Thinking about what neighborhoods lack tree canopy, some of them that immediately come to mind are on the northeast end of Denver, communities like Sunnyside, Globeville, Elyria, Swansea, that tend to be more industrial in nature. So that history of zoning and what their present and historical land use is has a lot to do with why they don't have trees, or if they tried to plant trees, why it might be a harrowing feat for them to grow up and live to maturity. But those are neighborhoods that come to mind when I think of those that don't have enough trees.
To get Globeville, Elyria, Swansea up to the level of tree canopy of the rest of Denver, we would need between 3,000 and 10,000 new trees planted. and then it takes time for that canopy to grow out. You know, when you plant a tree, it doesn't, you know, achieve its full spread for many years, sometimes 10 years, sometimes more. So it's a long, slow process, and it's kind of a tiny move, but I think it has so many benefits on so many levels.
One of the great things about planting trees, even though the benefits are sometimes not, you know, until 20, 30 years off, are that they provide that deep connection, generational connection for folks to their community, to their place. And so that metaphor around roots and really strengthening community roots, I think, ties deeply to the reason to plant trees in community, to do the tree planting efforts in community-led ways, to make sure that everybody is engaged in both the planting and the maintenance and stewardship of trees, because they really help tell that kind of rich story that builds social cohesion, builds community resilience, and even though it's just a small tree right now, really provides that connection to not just place, but also time and generation and culture.
Trees are such long-lived organisms. It's one of those things like you plant a tree for your kids and your grandkids. You know, if we're working on planting trees in neighborhoods that lack tree canopy now, they're not going to have canopy, significant canopy for 10, 15 years, just because it takes that long for the trees to grow and come into maturity. But that's why the maintenance part of the conversation is so important, because it's really fun to go out and plant seedlings and to plant young trees, but that's not what creates the cooling benefit. That's not what creates the documented health benefits. What creates those benefits is mature trees and mature tree canopy, and that takes decades to realize.
So there are a whole host of reasons that many communities don't have trees. And one of the things that we need to do together, you know, partners such as community groups, city, others, is help identify, unearth some of those challenges that might not be as apparent as others, including social, psychological, economic, cultural barriers, including barriers in the built environment, whether there's enough space, enough soil, etc. A whole host of different challenges in planting trees. To that end, what we really need to overcome the tree inequity across, you know, any city, especially a place like Denver, is we need a more integrated commitment and partnership between groups like the city, you know, private entities, you know, community groups, tree planting groups, to make sure that we're thinking about a holistic and integrated approach to getting trees in the ground, trees cared for, and keeping people in communities so that they can benefit from those trees and that tree canopy in the long term.
In Denver, there are a number of resources that we're excited to be able to offer to residents who need help with trees. There are free and affordable tree programs. The Park People's Denver Digs Trees program has provided more than 50,000 free and affordable trees to residents over the past 35 years. And we're always happy to provide kind of expertise and knowledge, tree planting guides, tree care guides to residents, and to connect them with community forester volunteers who can also be great resources as well.
So where do people, families, neighborhoods that don't have trees, where do they turn to get them? Number one recommendation would be the Park People and their Denver Digs Trees program. They offer each year free trees and low-cost trees to Denver residents and surrounding municipalities so that we can plant trees where they are needed, where they are wanted, and with the assistance that individuals, be they renters or homeowners, need to get those trees in the ground and off to a healthy start.
We plant trees. We always want to do it in a really thoughtful way. There's an urban forestry mantra: right tree, right place. Sometimes people add in right reason, so that we're really making intentional choices about the types of trees that we're planting, where we're planting them, how they're being planted, and what the purpose of that tree is.
I think that solving the tree inequity problem has so much to do with engaging with communities and asking those questions and being very, very intentional about where you're going with grant dollars, organizational dollars, whatever the investment is. And some good examples, specific examples right here in Metro Denver of that kind of strategic and collaborative and community engaged work is happening with organizations like the Trust for Public Land, like the Nature Conservancy. Groundwork Denver puts a lot of youth to work in communities. Organizations like the Park People, they're the folks that know where to get the trees, know how to plant the trees, and really have the expertise to work with the city or the local government, the neighborhoods, the nonprofits, the volunteers, whoever's involved in having those conversations, doing the planting, doing the maintenance. They just have the know-how, right? So you do it right and you put a tree in the ground, and it's an investment that's going to last.
But I mean, trees are something that we ought to kind of get together on. It shouldn't. It should not turn into a controversy. It shouldn't. I think if we keep it simple, like Kim says, right tree, right place. It's something we have to kind of learn.